everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the California Arts Council's 2021 Grant Programs Overview webinar. We are so thrilled to have you with us today. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to type them in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We will respond to as many questions as we can at the end of this webinar. Before we begin, we want to point out a few access features for today. Firstly, thank you to our translators, Annabelle and Leon, for joining our team today. To access closed captions, click on the closed captioning button on the Zoom toolbar and select Show Subtitles. The slide on your screen has a photo of a dancer from the Oakland Ballet Company with a bright yellow dress and a yellow flower in her hair. I am Roman Sanchez. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm a light-skinned Mexican American wearing a salmon-colored shirt and wearing glasses. I'm a theater producer, director, and educator, born and raised in the Imperial Valley, then spent several years in Humboldt County. I'm a program specialist and analyst here at the California Arts Council, California's state arts agency. I work in the Arts and Corrections program as a program analyst and will be co-managing the Individual Artist Fellowships Grant Program this year. I am joined by some of my wonderful colleagues. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Thanks, Roman. I'm Reese Lee, Programs Team Student Assistant, and my pronouns are they, she. I'm a light-skinned Korean and white person, and today I'm wearing a black striped shirt with a gray vest. I'm a writer, a poet, and a lifelong learner. I've been with the California Arts Council for a year, and I am constantly humbled by the deep knowledge, the mutual aid, the transformative, and the determination that California artists and communities share, especially now.
Thanks, Reese. And hello, everyone out there. I'm Jason Jong, an arts program specialist with the California Arts Council. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a Chinese person with black hair. Today I'm wearing a gray collared shirt. I'm a father and percussionist. I've worked with a number of cultural arts presenters, museums, and community service organizations, and I'm very grateful to be sharing space with my colleagues and with you all here today. And among the many CAC team members working behind the scenes is Public Affairs Student Assistant and Webinar Extraordinaire Kiana Moore, who will be supporting the Q&A feature at the end of this presentation. Before we formally begin, we want to acknowledge that the California Arts Council stands in solidarity with all of California's Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge that our work takes place on the now occupied traditional lands of the Miwok, Maidu, and Nisenan people, who are the past, present, and future stewards of this place. We make this step as a first effort in our journey to develop relationships and cultural competencies to truly support Native sovereignty.
Thank you, Jason. The slide on your screen has a photo of members of Counterpulse crocheting with large pieces of fabric. Now, let's dive right in. This webinar is jam-packed with helpful information and resources about our grants that we're beyond excited to share with you all. Here's a look at our agenda for today. We'll start by sharing a brief overview of who we are. Then we'll highlight new grant opportunities for this year. We'll go over this year's grant program priorities established by our council, followed by a brief highlight of our new website. We'll introduce our amazing staff of program specialists, followed by a rundown of this year's 6 grant programs and a brief overview of the application process. Then, we'll talk about our grant review panel process, including an opportunity for you to get involved as a field representative. We'll wrap up by going over some key dates. And then, as time allows, we'll take a few of your questions before saying goodbye.
So what is the California Arts Council? The California Arts Council is a state agency with a mission of strengthening arts, culture, and creative expression as the tools to cultivate a better California for all. We are California's only public arts grants provider with funding that is accessible to all 58 California counties. As a state agency, we prioritize racial equity and have a broad geographic reach into communities of all sizes. California's arts sector is large and diverse, and its businesses and workforce are a significant contributor to our state economy and identity. The budget, policies, and allocations for the California Arts Council's grant making are set by our council, consisting of 11 appointed council members. Those of us here with you today are a part of our state agency staff who are responsible for the implementation of the council's grant programs, as well as state operational activities, programs, and services. It's our job to invest in you, the individuals and arts organizations that keep California unique, healthy, and vibrant. You're here today to learn about how we support local arts infrastructure and programming statewide through grants. However, on our website, you can learn more about our other vital programs like Arts and Corrections and the Administrators of Color Fellowship, as well as our support services. On our website, you can also learn more about how we think by viewing our strategic framework, racial equity statement, and decision support tool that guide our agency and council's policies and practices.
We are very excited for this grant cycle, which was strongly influenced by our new strategic framework and by voices from the field during our community listening sessions. These grants feature new funding opportunities, including general operating support for organizations and fellowships to support the creative practice of individual artists, as well as continued support for project-based activities. We'll go into further detail about these programs later in this webinar.
Also responsive to the community's current and urgent needs, our council has streamlined many of our grants in an effort to allocate funding where it is most needed at this time, to simplify the application, and to continue to support the panel review process. That said, we do want to make clear that the project-based programs not being offered this year, for example, re-entry through the arts, artists and communities, arts and education, local impact, have very meaningful projects and collaborations. We encourage anyone with projects in these areas to apply to the Impact Projects Grant Program this year.
The CAC has a new website. All of the resources we are sharing today can be found on our website, arts.ca.gov. The site includes new features, including a searchable grants database and an improved and expanded public opportunities portal. It also includes greatly enhanced accessibility features, including a toolbar for visual access modifications. The website is home to a plethora of valuable information, including grant guidelines, support videos, accessibility information, program specialists' contact information, and links to the online application portal.
And speaking of program specialists, here are 3 program specialists with their corresponding portfolios and contact information. We are here to help you navigate the application process and answer your questions. Please do not hesitate to reach out. To schedule a 15-minute consultation with any of the specialists, you may use the Calendly link in their email signature line and on the CAC website. First on this slide is Hilary Anna, who is the co-program specialist for the General Operating Relief Grant. Next is myself, Jason Jong, and I'm the program specialist for the Statewide and Regional Networks Grant, program specialist for the Individual Artist Fellowships Legacy Artist Fellows, and co-program specialist for the General Operating Relief Grant.
And next is Dr. Josie Miller, who is the program specialist for the Individual Artist Administering Organization Grant and co-program specialist for the Individual Artist Fellowships, Established Artist Fellows, and the Impact Projects Grant. And next is Andrea Porras, who is the program specialist for the Jump Starts Grant and co-program specialist for the Impact Projects Grant. Lastly is myself, Roman Sanchez, program specialist for the Individual Artist Fellowships Emerging Artist Fellows. And those are your arts program specialists.
As your state arts agency, the Arts Council is prioritizing this year's grant funding to nurture and heal our communities through the arts, to keep the doors of our arts and cultural institutions open, to protect jobs in the creative field, and to preserve our cultural heritage, our stories, and our culture bearers. As we mentioned earlier, in response to the current urgent needs of the field, our council has streamlined all grant programs into 6 specific grant opportunities for 2021. This year's grant programs have been informed and developed by public input and data in alignment with our strategic framework decision support tool. Today, we'll do a brief overview of each program, but you can find very helpful program overview videos on the website that go into a bit more detail about each program. You can also access the program guidelines on our website. Our guidelines are long documents with a lot of detail, but it's very important to read them in full before starting an application.
Thank you, Reese. First, we have the Arts and Cultural Organizations General Operating Relief Grant Program. This funding opportunity opens this Friday, the 18th, and is due on February the 17th. It provides up to $30,000 in operational relief funding for arts and cultural organizations who have experienced economic hardships due to the COVID-19 pandemic and will prioritize small organizations. The CAC defines small organizations as having a total operating budget of less than $250,000. This program does require a match. Next is our statewide and regional networks grant, which will also open this Friday, the 18th, with a deadline of February the 24th. It awards up to $35,000 in general operating support for arts service organizations. And these are organizations that are providing practical resources for the communities they serve. This grant program does require a match.
Moving into project-based support, We have the Impact Projects Grant, which is currently open and closes on February 2nd. This grant opportunity awards up to $18,000 for collaborative projects that center artists and artistic practice in responding to issues currently faced by California's communities. This program will prioritize small organizations and does not require a match. And the fourth grant program we're offering is the Jump Starts Grant, which is currently open and closes on February 11th. This program uplifts and supports high-quality arts education and artists in residence programs for priority youth and young people impacted by the justice system. Up to $50,000 can be requested for full projects, and up to $2,500 can be requested for planning programs. Programs may be located in state facilities, county facilities, and/or community spaces. This program will prioritize small organizations and does not require a match. We'd also like to note that the CAC's commitment to at-promise youth is reinforced by the State of California Budget Act of 2020 that maintains a mandate to invest in the Jump Starts program this fiscal year.
And now moving into support for individual artists, this program will open this Friday, the 18th, and closes April 1st. Our council is very passionate about this program, which brings back direct support for California artists for the first time in many years. The Individual Artist Fellowships will award Emerging Artist Fellows $5,000, Established Artist Fellows $10,000, and Legacy Artist Fellows $50,000. All awards are unrestricted funds and do not have to be tied to a project. The purpose of this program is to recognize, uplift, and celebrate the creative practices of California artists at key career levels. Lastly, this is an opportunity that will be awarded to a single administering organization to re-grant individual relief funding on behalf of the California Arts Council. This is the relief for individual artists and cultural practitioners. This grant will open this Friday, the 18th, and it closes February 25th. This award will be for just over 1.3 million, of which up to 8% can be used for program administration. The selected administering organization will then award $1,000 grants in unrestricted relief support for artists and cultural practitioners of color facing dire economic consequences due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Announcements of the opportunity for individuals will be made available at a later date during the grant season.
So those are our 6 programs for the 2021 grant cycle. So how and where do you start your application? To start an application, you can create an account online through the CAC's grant management system at calartscouncil.smartsimple.com. This system is where you will create your organization's or your personal profile, as well as work on and submit applications.
There's a lot of new at the CAC. Staff have been diligently working from home, new grant programs, new staff members, and we have some new features and adjustments to the application process. We are very excited to have an efficient application process, which we hope eliminates challenges and barriers for applicants. First is no longer requiring SMU data arts. As a replacement, applications ask for basic financial history, a 2-year budget snapshot. Second, matches are only required for the General Operating Relief Grant and the Statewide and Regional Networks Grant. The 4 other grant programs do not require a match. Third, some grant programs will prioritize organizations with budgets of $250,000 or less. These grant programs include general operating relief, impact projects, and jump starts. Fourth, interviews will be incorporated as part of the application's panel review process for legacy artist fellowships and the administering organization grant. And fifth, if awarded, payments will be distributed in full at the beginning of the grant period.
Thank you for those exciting updates, Roman. Another new feature this year is the inclusion of our agency's racial equity statement and the requirement for all applicants to submit their own racial equity statement as part of the initial eligibility process. As the agency has been evolving our own race and equity practices, we invite applicants to start, continue, or strengthen their racial equity practices with us. This past October, the CAC's Race Equity Manager, Catherine Canton, offered a wonderful webinar titled Why Race? To discuss the full history and background of our agency's relationship with racial equity. The recorded webinar is available on our website, along with other racial equity learning resources, including examples of racial equity statements. This is a great resource for prospective applicants.
Thank you, Jason. Another new feature this year is our tailored review criteria. This year, each grant program has its own distinct review criteria, and they vary program by program. Review criteria are the qualities the panelists will be looking for as they review and rank applications. These criteria have been carefully crafted to be specific to each grant program and to serve as a guidepost during the grant writing process. For example, impact projects review criteria are project design, community engagement and social impact, local artist support, and accessibility. Whereas the statewide and regional networks grants review criteria are management and leadership, statewide or regional services, equity, and accessibility. Be sure to read the review criteria for programs you are applying to thoroughly before starting your application.
And this brings us to the panel process. We highly encourage you to apply to join our panelist pool. The panel experience provides great insight into the grant-making process, offering professional development and networking opportunities for arts practitioners working across creative sectors. Community members with careers in social justice, focusing on youth and adult programs that provide links between social service and the court systems are also welcome to apply. In addition to experienced arts practitioners, this is a great opportunity for new and emerging members of the arts and culture community. Invited panelists receive a $100 per day honorarium to subsidize them for their 3-day panel participation. Panelists make a 3 to 4 week commitment to read through roughly 33 to 55 applications per panel prior to the grant review panel meeting. Applications are accepted on a rolling basis on the CAC website. The last collection date for this grant cycle is January 7th, 2021. So be sure to apply by then. Applications submitted after January 7th will be considered for the 2022 grant cycle.
Thank you, Roman. So as mentioned earlier, 2 of the 6 grant programs have already launched, and the remaining 4 will be released this Friday, the 18th. Closing dates or deadlines vary for each grant program. The 5 organizational grants close in February, while individual artist fellowships closes the 1st of April. The application, panel selection, and panel review process will generally take several months, but applicants to all programs can expect to receive award notification around July. With that said, all grant programs share the same grant activity period, That's October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022.
We will now enter a Q&A. As a reminder, you can submit questions in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We won't have time to respond to all of the questions, so by the end of this webinar, if you have any unanswered questions, please feel free to reach out to a program specialist. Our colleague, Kiana Moore from the Public Affairs team will be helping to moderate the Q&A. Kiana, what's our first question?
Thank you, Roman. Before I begin, I just want to let everyone know that's participating today that a recording of the webinar will be emailed to everyone with English and Spanish translation available. Now getting to our first question. Can my organization apply for multiple organization grants? And related, can we apply to a program with more than one project?
Great, so I think I can take this one. Organizations can apply to multiple organizational grants with one exception. If you are applying to the statewide and regional networks, you may not also apply to the general operating grants. So there's one restriction there. The second question again, Kiana, was that around project-based grants for organizations?
Yes, it is. Can we apply to a program with more than one project?
With more than one project. So the general operating grants support an organization more holistically. The project-based grants for organizations include jumpstarts and include the impact projects grant. The key thing to keep in mind in any instance is that there may not be sort of any overlapping features or requests, any aspects of the program design that you as an organizational applicant would be proposing to draw from two funding streams. So if you are applying to multiple grant categories, project-based grant categories as an organization, you want to make sure that you're distinguishing separate requests per each organizational project-based grant. I should note that once the remaining guidelines become available this Friday, many of the questions should probably become a lot clearer. And if not, absolutely, we highly encourage folks to reach out to the indicated arts program specialists that you can find within each set of guidelines.
Thank you, Jason. For our second question, can you describe what match means?
Wonderful question. So for those programs that do require a match, and the current grant requests that require a match are general operating and the statewide and regional networks grant opportunity, a match means that however many dollars you're requesting out of the CAC, you're also showing how you might be coming to the table with support, financial support from other sectors of the field. So when we request matches in this cycle, the request is what's considered a one-to-one match ratio. If you're asking for $5, then you're going to show in your application how you're bringing to the table, so to speak, another $5. Now, within each application, in the application portal, you'll have an opportunity to express this in a matching budget table. I should also note that this year, we allow in-kind support. So there are two different types of matching funds. Not to get into the weeds too much here, but just note that there are cash match sources as well as in-kind sources. In-kind for the California Arts Council in general means third-party sources that you are able to show the value of goods or services. So the thing to keep in mind with match, two different kinds of match support source types. And within each application, you'll also find additional information and links to our in-kind support PDF document. So there's a lot of information to help support you as you're helping to show how you're meeting that matching fund requirement. Thank you for that question.
Question number 3. Do you support new organizations, or does the organization need to be established?
Do you feel like you want to answer this one, Reese?
Right. So we support organizations with an established history of 2 years or more at the time that the application is due. And usually you can show this within your budget tables, which you will fill out just your financial history within the Smart Simple application. Do you have anything to add, Jason?
That's exactly it. I think that 2 years of arts programming services or direct support to the field, that's kind of the baseline. You'll reflect that in your organization profile, where you have an opportunity to share your programs and services. And you'll also reflect that within, as Reese eloquently stated, the 2-year budget snapshot. So 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, and at the time of application. So by the time you push that button to submit and or that application deadline.
Thank you. The next question. Can one be a panelist and apply for a grant at the same time? Roman, I see you shaking your head. Would you like to answer this one?
Yes, because I'm very passionate about getting our applicants in our panelist pool. Absolutely. It is a very rewarding experience to be a panelist and a grant writer, or be someone that is applying for grant funding. By all means, if you are applying for any of our 6 grant programs, feel free to also submit an application to join our panelist pool. We would love to have you. And we hear from previous panelists that it is a very enriching and great learning opportunity for them to be able to read about other projects that are happening in the state and read strong applications and be able to develop a network with other arts practitioners, arts and culture practitioners across different sectors.
Wonderful. Can you share more about the 3 levels of the individual artist fellowships? Will artists apply for those grants directly?
Great question. So we're so excited about this program. As indicated, it's a return to individual artist support, more than a decade long and coming. And there are 3 levels this year. So for emerging artist fellows, these are artists who have between 2 and 4 years of artistic practice. Established artist fellows, the second tier, so to speak, these are artists who might have between 4 and 10 years of artistic practice. And then our legacy artist fellows are those individuals who have more than 10 or more years of artistic practice. And for the fellowships grant program, you would be applying directly. You as an individual artist, you would register for an individual artist account. This is something new within our grants management system. I should note that you might want to think about which email address you would be using if you're also working with an organization, as our email addresses within the system must be unique. So you'd probably want to use a personal email address when registering for the individual artist user type and the individual artist fellowship categories. So yes, direct applications for individuals to the fellowships. The administering organization relief grant to individual artists, that is a funding opportunity where the panelists will decide on one organization, just one, that will be administering that $1.3 million I had mentioned earlier. And this administering organization will then re-grant. So they will be the ones to offer the direct assistance to the individual artists in the relief grant category.
Thank you. We have some really great questions coming in. So this next one is a two-parter. Let me know if I need to repeat it. For programs where small organizations are prioritized, are larger organizations still eligible to apply? Do large organizations just have a reduced chance of being awarded a grant?
So I can start out with this one if that's all right. We are prioritizing small organizations, so organizations with a budget at or below $250,000. They will be assessed first and considered first for funding. And then any remaining funds that we have left over, those organizations that are over $250,000 will be considered for those.
Awesome. Thank you, Reese. For project grants, is it possible for two nonprofit orgs to apply together as a collaborative partnership?
That's a good question. So partnerships, generally speaking, of any kind are very positive relationships to have. When it comes to applying to a project-based grant within our portal, one organization would be the lead, so to speak. The only current program that we have a kind of a more established partnership relationship is within the Jumpstarts category. And this is if you're an arts organization and you're partnering with a state, county, or community-based center facility for that particular grant program. So while partnerships are very positive aspects of a project design, and while they're very positive to have, a formal partnership is not required for the project-based grants. You would, at that point, I think, definitely want to connect with the arts program specialist to talk through what that might look like, how the secondary organization might kind of show up more or less. Another opportunity to show the strength of relationships that your organization might have in the field is through the letters of support, the submission of letters of support or testimonial in applications where that is a requested document. So I hope that answers that question around partnerships. But again, always absolutely feel free to connect with the designated arts program specialists.
Thank you. Next question. What is the time period for the $250,000 budget requirement? How many years back will you be assessing? Our budget has been reduced as a result of COVID.
I can answer this if anyone doesn't have anything else to add. So the budget snapshot and any of the financial related information is requested to represent a 2-year period from the time of application. So it would be the most recent fiscal years for your organization.
I think that they're asking how long of a period it has to be for 250,000 in order to qualify for the small organization bracket. Was that right?
Yeah, the first part of the question is, what is the time period for the $250,000 budget requirement? How many years back will you be assessing?
That is a good question. Our current hard requirement is that the I should back up and say that our budget snapshot currently does ask for you to show 2 years of history. That may be a question that we would have to consider maybe in a one-on-one conversation, and perhaps an area to clarify for the future. If it is those 2 years, both, if the question is, should both years have that $250,000 budget threshold to be considered a small organization? So if we could circle back, and if the questioner could also be sure to, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Kiana, we should be able to also answer some of these questions in our reply to the field. And I should note that it's likely we would be enhancing our FAQ section of our website. So I don't want to misspeak, but I would say that for that question, feel free to circle back. We will get it answered. And we'll also try to find a way to make sure that responses that might impact a large number of organizations are also uplifted in some method.
Thank you, Jason. Are virtual programs eligible for project grants like impact projects and jumpstarts?
Absolutely. We are very, the California Arts Council is very aware of our state's COVID protocols. So by all means, virtual programming are eligible projects to apply for either of those grant programs.
Thank you. For the 3 categories in individual artist fellowships, do we self-determine what category we fall under?
It's another great question. Yes, you would want to consider the length of time that you have been practicing your tradition or your artistic specialty, whatever it may be. So they are time-based, but you as the applicant would make that determination, and you would have an opportunity to express how you understand that that tier that you feel you belong in within the application narrative questions.
Thank you. Next question. Can you be a fiscally sponsored organization to apply without your own nonprofit status?
Let me make sure I understand the question. So fiscally sponsoring organizations, those that would serve to support another organization in the application, they must have a 501c3 tax exempt status from the IRS. That is the purpose of the fiscal sponsors. So if the question is, perhaps should the fiscal sponsor have be a nonprofit, and have tax exempt status? The answer is yes. That's kind of the point of a fiscal sponsor. If, however, the question is, I'm a fiscally sponsoring entity for another organization's application, can I also apply to this organization grant category? Then the answer is absolutely. And in fact, many times we see that fiscally sponsoring organizations are actually providing that fiscal sponsor service to a number of other organizations. So they might be fiscally sponsoring some organizations in the same category, perhaps, that they might be applying, and that is absolutely completely fine.
Thank you. I think both ways that you answered that question were incredibly helpful.
Great, great.
At this time, we still have a few more minutes that we're taking questions. Make sure to submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Give me just 1 second. Can you share a bit about what it means to be in good standing with the CAC?
I can take a first pass at this question. So when we say in good standing, currently the context is in good standing with the California Secretary of State. And as we indicate in the guidelines, one way that you can do that is by going to the Secretary of State's business search tool on their website, looking up your organization, and reviewing the status of your organization according to state records. So that's what we mean by in good standing in the context of a certificate of good standing from the state of California. So at the moment, we don't have a clear, robust set of guidelines around what it might mean to be in good standing with the California Arts Council. That is something that may come down the line, but it's currently not in place at the moment. Some things that are always important to keep in mind are that your organization should have any outstanding final reports from prior years, completed any outstanding required materials. They generally should be completed as a part of your prior year commitments to the California Arts Council. But in the context of good standing, as it appears in the grant language, we're referring to your standing with the Secretary of State. And again, you can review that status on their website. There's a link within the guidelines, and I believe that there's a link within the application as well. An organization with good standing would have what's called active status with the Secretary of State. And you might also have an actual certificate that declares your status as active.
Thank you. Next question. Can the leader of an applicant organization also apply to be an individual artist fellow? A lot of interest in the individual artist program.
Absolutely, absolutely. As an artist and cultural practitioner, we expect that you likely do have relationships with arts and cultural organizations throughout the state. So by all means, feel free to apply for both with your organization for an organizational grant, and for you as an individual to apply for an individual artist fellowship. But as Jason mentioned earlier, do keep in mind that you will need 2 separate emails while creating your one for your organizational grant portal and a personal email for your individual artist fellowship application.
Thank you for clarifying that. Will grant panels be happening remotely?
Yes, they'll be happening virtually.
Awesome. Can you review again when all programs will be open for applications?
Yes, so we have 2 grant programs that are currently open, meaning the guidelines are available on the CAC website, and you can start those applications on the grants management system, Smart Simple. The remaining 4 grant programs of our grant cycle will become available this Friday, the 18th, meaning all of the 4 grant programs guidelines will be posted on our website, and you can start those applications this Friday, the 18th.
And again, it's impact projects and jumpstarts that are currently available. The ones coming online this Friday are arts and cultural organizations, general operating relief, individual artist fellowships, relief for individual artists and cultural practitioners, and the statewide and regional networks grant program.
Thank you. So that actually was our last question. I'm going to pass it back to Roman for a wrap up. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Kiana. So that concludes our 2021 Grant Programs Overview webinar. Later this week, we will post a recording of this webinar to our grant resources page, and it will also be distributed via email. Also, feedback is very important to us as we continue to grow our community with you. After you log off this webinar, a brief survey will appear on your screen. Many, many thanks to the CAC's public affairs team, our translators, Annabelle and Leon, and to all of our colleagues for your support in creating this webinar and making it accessible to all Californians. Thank you for participating and sharing your feedback with us. On the screen is the contact information for program specialists. Again, thank you to everyone for your time, interest, and for keeping California creative.